Hello. Alkaline breathing techniques. Is that possible? Does that exist? Can you alkalize your body through breathing techniques? Okay, well, that's the subject of this video, and I'm going to take it step by step. And so first I will explain you that indeed it is possible that you can alkalize your blood and also your muscle tissue through breathing exercises, for example, the Wim Hof method. And then in the end of the video, we'll go a little bit deeper and to basically nothing is always true. Let me start with how do you alkalize your system? So we have our lungs, we have our blood, and we have our muscle tissue. And of course, it's in the end about having a alkaline muscle and nerve tissue. Now, how does it work? So very simply said, carbon dioxide is making your blood and your system more acidic. Yeah, so a Coca-Cola or also a water with bubbles is more acidic than without the bubbles. The bubbles is carbon dioxide and it's making your system more acidic. Oxygen, on the other hand, is making it more alkaline. So if you look at the ratio of oxygen divided by CO2, the higher that is, the higher the pH level, and thus the more alkaline, or in other words, less acidic your blood is. It's pretty simple so far, right? Now let's look at breathing. What happens when we breathe? We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2. So that would imply that if you breathe deeper and faster, that you would alkalize your system. Now your system is both your blood and your muscle tissue. So let's look at the blood first. It's true, if you breathe deeper, you breathe out a lot of CO2 and you go within your bloodstream still to 100% oxygen saturation. So if you breathe deeper, your blood is more alkaline than if you breathe less. Now some of you may be like, wait a minute, breathing less is better. And Tim, you've said so many times. I did. And I will explain afterwards why this is true. There's also a counterpart. So what does that mean for our muscle tissue, simply said? Well, for example, if you have muscle pain, then your muscle tissue is more acidic. Is this bad? No, because it's temporal. But if it's continuously acidic because of whatever, a bad lifestyle, could be McDonald's, smoking, alcohol, no sleep, too much stress, whatever, you can fill that in for yourself. So if your muscle tissue is continuously acidic, unhealthy, if it's temporarily acidic because of lactic acid, because of muscle pain, because you did like a workout at the gym, it's actually very healthy. So we have a problem with chronic acidification. Now, if you have chronic acidification, deeper breathing may help. And let me show you a little proof. And I got this from Pierre Capel, and this is about Wim Hof method breathing. Yeah, so let me show you this graph. So the first row is the pH level. Then there's the CO2 level. PCO2 is like the partial pressure of CO2. It's like how much CO2 is in your blood. We're talking about the blood here. And the PO2 is your oxygen saturation. Now, at the start, there's the pH level of the blood is 7.4. This is normal. And the PCO2 is 4.49 and the oxygen is 16.5. Now, this is about 3 rounds of Wim Hof method breathing. So the deeper breathing, you call that controlled hyperventilation in the medical world. So this is why it's called end hyperventilation. After the first round of 30 times breathing, the pH level went up to 7.66. And you see your CO2 level went down to 2.11. And your oxygen level went up to 22. Then we have the end of the retention. You see that 7.44 is the pH level, so it's still slightly more alkaline than at start. The CO2 level is lower, from 4.49 to 4.01, and the oxygen level is extremely low. This is because you've been breathing out so much too that you can hold your breath a lot longer. CO2 is the breathing trigger, so a higher CO2 makes you breathe again. So there's an extreme low oxygen level at the end of your retention. Now I'm gonna fast forward to the last column. Yeah, this is after 3 rounds. And what we're talking about here is acidity, so the pH level. You see at the end of the last retention, the pH level is still 7.5, and which is higher than 7.4. So, generally speaking, you can say that after 3 rounds of Wim Hof method breathing, your pH level is 7.5, which is higher, and therefore it's alkalizing your bloodstream. Now, this is still the blood. What happens in your muscle tissue? And there's a great but. So if your muscle tissue is acidic, you can raise that pH level. Acidity means lower than 7.4. You can raise that pH level by deeper breathing. Now, is always deep breathing a good thing? No, it isn't. Like, nothing is always true. And this is why. This is called the Bohr effect. Within our muscle tissue, we have a kind of oxygen lock, I call it. Which means if the CO2 level is too low, then oxygen cannot enter the cells. So although a very high level of CO2, and that's lowering your pH level and making your system more acidic, a very high level of CO2 may be not beneficial. If it's too low and that Bohr effect kicks in, that oxygen lock, then the oxygen cannot enter the cells anymore. And without oxygen in your cells, clearly this is asking for long-term problems. This is why hyperventilation, short-term, no real danger. Breathing deep for a few times, it's not really dangerous. But if you're always hyperventilating and you're breathing out all that CO2, and this is why this oxygen lock is continuously on, oxygen cannot enter your muscle tissue anymore, therefore creating long-term problems. To summarize, is it possible to alkalize your blood through breathing? Yes. Is it possible that if your muscle tissue is very acidic, that you can raise that pH level and alkalize your system or make it less acidic? Yes, also. Is it good to always breathe deep? No, it is not. So therefore, techniques like Wim Hof method, TT breathing, Tummo breathing, like everything that involves deep breathing and then a breath hold are so intelligent because like you switch it around. You breathe deeper, CO2 goes down, oxygen goes to 100%, then you hold your breath, CO2 goes up and oxygen goes down. I hope that this clarified potential questions that you may have. If you want to know more about alkalizing your breath through breathing, then you can go to the description of this video and you find a PDF that shares like the information that I talked about in very few words. I like less words. And if you want me to make a video about a certain subject, please leave a comment or go to my website, find my email and send me an email. Because I would love to know what you want to know more about. And of course, if you like this channel, please subscribe. It's very much appreciated. And if you want, you can even hit that notification bell. And then every time I post a video, you can be annoyed because you will get an email whenever I do. Thank you very much for your time. See you in the next. Bye-bye.